Today I'll be talking about a crucial topic, that is geohazards. We'll discuss what are geohazards, what are different types of geohazards, and what are their impacts on the society. Also, we'll talk about the manage and mitigate these geohazards using societal and scientific efforts. In recent years, we have witnessed a rise in destructive natural events throughout. This presentation focuses on the understanding of underlying geological factors that drive such incidents, how we can better prepare for them, and how to mitigate these disasters. What are geohazards? Geohazards are naturally occurring geological processes or phenomena that possess threats to life, property, and environment. Common geohazards include earthquakes, landslides, floods, droughts, etc. India, due to its geographical and tectonic setting, is very prone to these natural hazards, especially to earthquakes, landslide, floods, and droughts. What are different types of natural disasters? These are divided into geological and meteorological impact. These are earthquakes, floods, landslides, droughts, tsunamis, avalanches, thunderstorms, and volcanic eruption. Though thunderstorm often considered a routine, it can impact on forming a landslide, flood, or even power failure. We'll discuss about some of the important geohazards in this presentation. Earthquakes are any sudden movement in the earth crust that causes destruction and loss of life. It is usually caused by movement in the tectonic plate and release of energy. It is very common in the Indian subcontinent. Floods, it's due to heavy rainfall, melting of snow, or any dam failure, that is construction and altering the natural flow of river channel, can lead to flooding in an area. Thunderstorm, though often considered to be a routine event, but it can trigger landslides, floods, and earthquake. Recognizing early warning signs is very important to overcome this natural disaster. Also, it is very common in the northeast region of India and also along the coastal areas. Drought, it is also a natural disaster that is characterized by prolonged water scarcity and abnormally low rainfall, causing imbalance in agriculture and ecological damage. Landslide, it is a movement of rock, earth, or debris down the slope. It is often caused by heavy rainfall, earthquakes, or even some human activities. It is very common in hilly areas and in the Himalayan region, also in the Western Ghat area. Almost 12.6% of Indian subcontinent is prone to these landslides. Avalanches is a type of a natural disaster that occurs when there is a movement of mass snow or ice down the slope. It can be triggered due to a landslide, earthquake, or intense precipitation during a steep slope. This is a snapshot of India's vulnerability to these hazards. 85% of this land is exposed to one or the other disaster. 60% of the Indian subcontinent lies in seismic zone 3 to 5. 40 million hectares of this area is prone to floods. 12.6% is vulnerable to landslide, and 7,500 meters of this coastline, it faces frequent cyclones. This shows that geohazards are occasional events, are not only an occasional event, but they are an ongoing national concern. There are several government organizations working on this geohazards. Few of them, namely National Disaster Management Authority, that prepares policies, plans, and makes policies to prevent these disasters. Geological Society of India, that helps in preparing geological maps and seismic maps for the area. Indian Meteorological Department, that provides monitors meteorological hazards. Indian Space Research Organizations, that provide satellite data. Indian National Center for Ocean Information System and Central Water Commission, that provides us ocean data information and advisory services for any tsunami or flood forecasting. These organizations collectively contribute to India's capacity to monitor geohazards, develop early warning system, and implement mitigation strategies to protect lives and property. Along with government organizations, there are several private organizations also working on these geohazards. So some of them, namely Seismic Hazard and Risk Investigation Private Limited, Geohazards India, Deloitte's IndiGeo Consultant, Geozone India Private Limited, and many more. These private organizations and many academic institutes also contribute significantly, specifically in data analysis, remote sensing, and community resilience training. Why geohazards matter in society? These geohazards cause human loss, that is death, injury, even displacement, economic loss to infrastructure, agriculture, and even GDP, environmental loss due to degradation of land, forest, and ecosystem, and to social systems such as education, health, and transport also face disruption. Therefore, assessment of these geohazard is very important for the society to protect lives and property, to inform infrastructural development, to promote sustainable land use, preserve cultural and natural heritage, reduce any economic loss, and also enhance climate resilience. Now, application of hazard mapping in zonation is an important part to overcome these natural hazards. What are hazard mapping and zoning? Hazard mapping, it involves creating maps that highlights area affected and vulnerable to specific geohazard, such as earthquake, landslides, and floods. These maps are typically based on historical data, geological assessment, and predictive modeling. While hazard zonation is classification of these regions into zones according to the level of risk they face, like they can be low risk areas, moderate risk areas, high risk areas, and very high risk areas, prioritizing area for mitigation measures and resource allocation. These hazard maps are very crucial for urban and regional planning, that is, it guides for development of infrastructure and settlement away from a high risk zone. It also informs and designs implementation and mitigation strategies such as early warning systems and insurance for potential losses and setting premium based on hazard exposure. Also, it supports for conservation of ecosystem that can mitigate hazard impact like wetland reducing flood risk. There are various techniques used for hazard mapping like inventory-based approach, that is basically utilizing historical records and field data surveys to document past hazards event, providing a basis for identifying susceptible areas. Statistical and probabilistic method that applies statistical analysis to determine the likelihood of hazard occurrences based on various environmental and geological factors. Also using physical laws and equation to simulate hazard scenarios such as slope stabilities analysis for landslides, GIS-based multi-criteria decision-making system that integrates multiple layers like soil layers, topo sheets, and soil type, land use using to assess hazard susceptibility. Also employing algorithm to predict hazard-prone areas through machine learning enhances the chances of accuracy for susceptibility map. The hazard mitigation usually involves monitoring and early warning system using remote sensing and GIS data, that is using satellite data and GIS for real-time monitoring for geohazard prone areas. Also deploying some sensor networks like inclinometer, seismometer, and rain gauge can help in preventing the geohazards. Also establishing community alert system, that is to communicate channel to disseminate warning promptly to at-risk population, public awareness and campaign, that is education public about the geohazard and tell them about the preparedness measures and response strategies, conducting regular emergency drills for evacuation and responses to ensure their readiness, also training local stakeholders in hazard assessment, risk reductions, and emergency management. Combining scientific reports, research, Combining scientific research, technology tools, and policy framework, also community participation leads to effective geohazard mitigation. There are several organizations, international organizations also, that emphasize on building local capacity and implementing practical solutions to mitigate these hazards to specific regional risk. These disaster management phases are basically in three phases, that is pre-disaster, during disaster, and post-disaster. Pre-disaster involves preparedness and prevention, that is to prepare to manage the crisis and prevent the impact of future disaster. During a disaster, it's the emergency response to save lives and minimize immediate impact involving any crisis management. Post-disaster involves recovery, reconstruction, and mitigation, that is to restore activities and services and also to minimize impact for future disaster. In conclusion, geohazards are a part of a natural world, but with proactive monitoring, planning, robust technology, public education, and interdisciplinary collaboration, we can mitigate their impact significantly. Let's aim for a resilient society, one that doesn't just respond, but prepares and thrives. Mitigate today to protect tomorrow. These are the references used for the presentation. Thank you for your time and patience.